Your values, tools in your arsenal that allow you to make the right decisions in life. Your core beliefs in this world. Many people's values aren't aligned with their identity. You may even have ideals that what you once thought were values, but in truth are misconstrued. But what if there was a way to understand what really mattered to you? To realign your values with your true identity? To understand the impact your values have on your everyday life? And how, if misaligned with what your soul is telling you, can be disastrous. To help you on your gifted path, your next set of remarkable masters are waiting. A master brand builder and founder of a global identity institute, building brands that makes the world go round. And an international speaker and co-founder of a global communications network who's helping millions of people discover who they truly are. Who will all help you answer the question, how do I become a values-based leader?
We'll start with a bit of origin story stuff just to lay the foundation so that you get to each know each other. And for the benefit of giving context to people. So John, let's start with you. If you had to share in a minute the past 20 years, not to make it challenging or difficult, but what's the highlight reel of your journey in terms of what you've already created? And then we'll get into what is currently happening.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Joe. That's a tough one in 1 minute, but I'll give it a shot. I guess, I was fortunate enough early on to meet my best friend, and we just hit it off from early on. And it wasn't just that we loved hanging out. We viewed the world in a very similar way. And then that manifested in us, obviously, thinking that since we were so aligned, we both dreamed about being entrepreneurs. We both dreamed about having a business. And early on, if ask both of us separately, we'd say the same thing. We created our first business just so we could hang out together more and have fun. We call it go to passion as opposed to go to work. So we started early on. We probably failed a good, I'd say 9-10 times. I use the word failure loosely there, and then hit one. And when we hit one, it came from just out of the blue in that one moment, just like a little turn of the dial of what we were doing made all the difference in the world. And we ended up selling that company in 2000. And in 2001, we went for a beer at a patio and realized that we had sold way too early, and the story was, left undone. And so we started back up again and took all our lessons forward and put our shekels in the middle of the table and started a company that's now 18 years old. And it's been an amazing journey, right? So we went from, again, nothing and established really strong, large market share in the country in telecommunications and internet telephony. And we've won innovation awards, Leaders of the Year award, CEO award, Best Culture in Canada award, HR Brand of the Year award. We've been very blessed and fortunate, and we feel like we're a big family and with multiple offices, and we really concentrate on disrupting. And for myself, I feel incredibly privileged that I get to be one of the leaders of this community and group. And born and raised in Waterloo, Geo, and some others do. I'm a grandpa, and that's a big honor. So I love being a grandpa. And yeah, that's it in the super quick version.
Brilliant. Thank you. Jen, same question to you.
Okay. I mean, like John, it's a long, winding yarn. So I will open by saying I am a seasoned chicken, not a spring chicken. In terms of origin story, I grew up in Hawaii. I grew up in a tiny little town of 4,000 people and absolutely felt like an alien. I used to ask God all the time, why did the aliens drop me off here? What am I supposed to learn here? When am I supposed to be here? Because I was always curious about the world and I wanted to see the world. But I honestly didn't want or desire to be an entrepreneur. I didn't really understand what that was. I thought, okay, if I get to work in a big company, I'll get to travel the world. That was the connection I made. And so I pursued a career in the corporate world for almost 15 years, with my last company working for was Verizon, and I was the VP of marketing of the West Coast at Verizon. I actually launched Internet Protocol TV to the United States back in 2000-ish, 2010. And I realized that I didn't have any autonomy. I was working so hard. I had 2 young daughters, and I was promised a promotion. And I thought, okay, if I just work harder, I'll go get that big C-level office and then I'll be happier. And I realized that as much as I love my team, I actually loved our executive team. I got along with everybody. I felt making a big difference in terms of technology, and it was exciting. But I got passed up for the promotion because I was busy working hard while my counterparts were playing golf with their boss. And I realized that relationships, not just hard work, were really important, not just at work, but actually in my family. And so I made a big reset and I started my own company. I made a 9-month plan to exit my job, and started a retail business that I grew to 8 figures, retail, which I had no background in retail except for the fact that I like to buy clothes. And because of my background in building brands and community from a business perspective, it went very well. But it was also during the Great Recession, and I didn't have the capital to keep up. And so that big failure, that big win and failure, as I like how John said, I see as failure as facts, failure as data. I learned a lot about what I really wanted again to do. And that culminated in creating a consulting company, where my first client became Verizon. So I went back and I said, I don't want to work for you, but I'd like to consult. And they were like, yes, please come back. And so that started to a consulting company that then turned into an education company to help other entrepreneurs like me who have backgrounds in and depth and expertise, but are trying to do that in a deeper way and create experiences, brand experiences. And so that's what I do today. But there's more, but ultimately, that's it. And I love, John, that you're a grandfather, because now my daughters are 25 and 20 from that time back, 15 years ago. And it's so cool to kind of go, oh gosh, they're grown women now. And to have shifted that and create such a deep relationship with them since making that decision is really like my biggest win in life. So
now watch how cool this is going to be, because who between the two of you are working on releasing an amazing book based on something different than what you're currently doing. You're both going to put up your hand. John.
Yeah.
What is the book about, and where did the shift into this new work come from? And I can't wait to see Jen's response when you say what you're currently working on.
Yeah, well, going on about, I would say 9 years now, going on 10 maybe even. I really started to move towards, best way to describe it is a gigantic wall, but I didn't know where the wall came from. Looking back, obviously I can connect the dots, but the symptoms from that wall were, feeling disengaged from the very dream that I helped create, not wanting to be in that dream anymore. And really it manifested, Gio, to the point where I really in one day realized I have no idea who John is. I don't know who I am. And in fact, my identity is probably my company's and vice versa. I was so ingrained into the creation of the company that I didn't know who I was. And then it really hit me hard when I said to myself, wait a second, if I don't know who I really am, how can I expect the people that are even the most closest to me to know me? And, in that moment, things just really changed. I started asking people, for advice, but I wasn't vulnerable at that point in time in my life, Gio. I was really, I would say, insulated. I insulated myself. I stayed safe, away from asking for help or seeking true guidance. But I did dip my toe into it a bit and ask. And they say, John, just take a vacation. You never take vacations. So I take a vacation, come back, and nothing changed. They say, you just took the wrong vacation. Try again. So nothing was really working. And what I realized was that if I was going to find the answers to what I was going through, I had to turn the arrow inward. And in one moment, I just turned the arrow towards myself and started asking myself, who am I? And from there, everything started to open up and change. There's a set of circumstances that occurred over a 4-day period when I took a trip out west that permanently changed my life. I knew I was never going to be the same person ever again. And quite frankly, I just simply remembered what I had pushed down, uh, what it was like when I was a kid. I started to remember that I used to dream about people being happy and how I could help them be happy. And in some cases, even as a kid, I would dream about them, being healed, or if they were in pain. My mom back then was in, a lot of pain. I used to dream about, her being healed and things like that. And I realized on the plane ride back from my trip that I had never really released this that's in my heart out to the world for a number of reasons. And I decided to, and I started with my company and my closest relationships, and a great transformation occurred from there. And to answer your question, uh, there's 100 stories embedded into all of that, but it manifested into me becoming incredibly thirsty about identity. I couldn't stop; it just overtook me, and I dove into ancient wisdom books from, very long ago, not really modern day. That's fine with modern day books. Now I read them, but back then it was just all about, the philosophies and the great leaders of the past, spiritual leaders. And I couldn't stop. I kept doing it, kept absorbing, I kept started writing, it started really pouring out of me. And the more I was leading from this place of who I really am, the more I saw the people around me, change, but change in how they were viewing me. But there was these great ripple effect that started occurring in feeling authentic to who I am, and not just leading the business, but leading my life. And I decided I wanted to start sharing that into the world. And so, yeah, I definitely wrote a book, and we did a pre-release, but we're going to be published and released in the new year. And I work with leaders around the world now, and I just celebrated working with actually the YPO. It's the first time anyone's ever done anything like this with the YPO. We embedded technology in with a program called Discover Your Who, which is my brand. And we worked in 55 countries around the world simultaneously, and in helping people discover who they really are, to align with that inner potential that I find is in every single one of us. And it's hidden until we take the time to kind of really tune into our heart and ask ourselves what truly matters to us. What do we truly desire?
Jen, what about you in terms of what you're creating?
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this book and I can't wait to read it. And I love, obviously, being somebody who's launched brands my entire career. It's so easy, and I resonate with, you're so baked into the identity of that brand that you're launching. You become that brand. It's like the Borg. It just assimilates you, and you forget how you are, who you are. And I think in describing even my origin story, every moment where I made a move for my life, it felt like it was through the lens of my career, right? It was like, oh, I made these changes because of my career. So my identity still, I think, continues to be so steeped in my contribution through work. And so I love this, and I'm super excited. And it is, I am having this like, holy shit moment around, like, it's so cool with the work that we're up to, because what I noticed every time I made a big shift in my life from a work perspective, I would get a lot of questions around, first of all, how did you have the courage to do it? And second of all, how do you keep producing? And you seem to really like your life now. And I said, yeah, I fought, and I use the word fight because I think it's important. I felt like I needed to fight to have a life I really desired, not just a life everybody admired, right? Everybody admired my life, but I didn't have a life that I desired. And it felt out of alignment, even though it still felt authentic to me. Like the things that I had built felt like, yeah, that Jen built it, but I still felt that missingness, something, there was a void. And that goes into the book that I'm in writing. And actually, there's so many things that are happening in the next couple months, but I will say that I started studying myself. is really what happened. I started really making myself who I was studying. What are the things? What were the decisions? Why did I do them? What really motivates me versus what is external motivation, right? And I started also then, after I did a deep study of myself, I started to study people I really admired, at least on the surface looked like they had a life that I admired, both work and everyday life. Because one of my values is I really like the fact that I think I was put here on this earth to some degree because I am really good at business. And at first I thought that wasn't like a real gift. I thought that's a surface level gift. But the more I studied myself, I was like, no, I'm a good problem solver, and I think through the construct of business, whether it was corporate or entrepreneurship, it felt good, like to get those types of results. And so as I studied myself, as I studied people I admired over the past, let's say 5 years, I started to develop a model that I felt helped explain to me what this was. And I realized that every single decision I've made, it's been made on my values. Now, I also realized that there's no such thing as good values, bad values. There's just values that, like getting honest with what really motivates you, even if by society's standards, they think you shouldn't have that value or that value doesn't support the world. The truth is that as individuals living in a collective world, we have a set of values that are shaped by 3 things. And this is part of the model: our vision, our voids, and our violations. And the voids and violations part is the part that a lot of people don't want to talk about, because that's the part that people assign to what I call like traumatic experiences or areas of our life that we felt we didn't satisfy something. We felt a void, right? Which is what a void means. And a violation is when, let's say for me, when it comes to work, I was passed up for a promotion that I felt like I really earned. And that felt like a violation. And as a result of those things happening, without naming it, I made a clear decision that I was going to go try something on my own. And I also realized that my highest value wasn't work at that moment. I thought it was, because that's what I was doing. My highest value was actually autonomy, like the ability to control and envision a life that I could create contributions on my own, like from my own gifts, talents, skills, and that I needed to try that. And so anyway, the book that I'm writing, I'm not where you're at, John. It's not published yet. I'm actually in the midst of writing it, but it's called Values Driven. And in my mind, it's a new metrics. It's a new metric for success, because and we're living in a world today where the game is off. Like the idea of like the old way to build a brand and identity and even personal brand, company brand, that type of thing. It's evolving, right? We're in the middle of what they call the Great Resignation. I call it the Great Reinvention, and people don't want to be measured just by revenue and P&L and KPIs, although I still firmly believe those are important for growth for a company. And if you're a leader that works for a company, whether it's someone else's or your own, those are important metrics, but they're not the only metrics anymore. Your metrics, I believe in companies are evolving into values-driven companies, not just results-driven companies. And so that's what this book is about. It's like your relationship as a person, as a leader inside of a bigger thing that makes an impact. And so I'm super excited about it. And yeah, that's what I'm up to.
Wow.
John, how would you respond to that?
I feel like, where do I begin? So such alignment with what you just said, Jen, and Gio knows that obviously from knowing us both. I truly feel that we're at a values deficit in the world as individuals and as in companies. I mean, at the end of the day, society has taught us that for whatever reason, a company is regarded, as separate from the individual. But we're all just a bunch of individuals that are bound together, hopefully with a deep, meaningful purpose that unites us to something that we believe in and that we want to be a part of. For us, everything changed when not only did I realize that I didn't know who I was, but that manifested into, wait a second, we don't know who our company is. And so the book that I wrote isn't just about, a leader discovering who he is and working on that for the rest of his life, but how it became so apparently clear to me that the company itself really needed to understand who it is. And, what is the who of the business, and what is that really deep connection and profound meaning to why we all spend a third of our life here at this company. And, I like what Jen said about in terms of, and I want to read your book, Jen. Values are something that are incredibly important, and I speak about it all the time. No matter if it's talking to a leader about who they are and helping them discover who they are, or a business and creating that, that beautiful identity that is so deeply, richly connected into the heart of the entrepreneur. Um, it really forms the right thoughts about who you are and who the company is. And those right thoughts then become the right words spoken, right? And the right words spoken become the right actions that you take in terms of an individual or a collection of individuals, right? So you're feeling your connection in terms of a company to this amazing identity because it was created from the heart of the entrepreneurs and founders, and really, and communicated into the ecosystem. And so it creates the right thinking, the right thoughts, a collection of the right thinking. And then you're speaking the right words, and everything's now coming alive. There's this unification of belief within the ecosystem, within the company. And then that mobilizes people into the right actions, which then create the right habits over time, which inevitably define your values, right? And those values become our character as individuals and companies. And so, Jen, I can't wait to read your book because, obviously there's a lot of alignment there. But I agree with what you're saying in terms of going forward. When you look at the amount of change that's occurring, the remote workforce, people trying to figure out what does that mean? How does a company stay connected? How are they going to properly communicate? One of the things that we forget about is that, some would say 70% or plus, we've heard this stat before, of communication is nonverbal. So how are we going to stay aligned? How are we going to make consistent decisions? If we're not under the same roof, like a beautiful office here, and we're all working remote, and not just in the same community, but potentially internationally, what is governing our alignment? It's values.
Yes. It's the crazy glue, but emphasis on the glue, not the crazy, right? I think finding, one of the things also this book, I love everything you just said. Our mutual friend, Jim Quick, that we all love, he spoke at an event of mine and he said this thing and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so in alignment with where I want to help people understand the nuance and discernment and how important this is to humanity. Getting to communicate more clearly and create collective buy-in based on individual identity inside of the ecosystem of the movement that a company is trying to create. And because Jim Quick said there are three things happening that are not going to change, the 3 A's. He said automation, artificial intelligence, and Asians. Okay. He said we are going to be outsourcing. People are fearing for their jobs. Do they belong? Will their gifts, talents, and skills be needed in the future? And the truth is that absolutely, this is the glue, the humans that come together. That's where the ideas and the shifts and the changes, they come from humans. I don't want us to give up on humans. I don't want us to give up on each other, because that's when we can make incredible strides. We can be a part of this world that's evolving instead of feeling like we're not part of it, like we're disconnected, we're disembodied from it. And I love what you said. A company is a body. It's an actual breathing organism. It is the Borg, but hopefully in a good way, right? Not the, it's pulsing. It's a membrane. It's not just processes, technology, and buildings, and I think both of our books, I'm so excited, will hopefully also reignite leaders to own their leadership of self so that they can reflect and mirror to their teams who are not interested in entrepreneurship. Because that's also a big problem. Everybody's now like, I don't think everybody should be an entrepreneur. I think people want to make contributions based on their values. Like maybe one of their values is being part of a bigger team, or even safety in numbers. Maybe that's one of their values. How do you connect their values to the greater values that the company has? And I think that even values, I don't know if you would agree with this, John, but values themselves, they've gotten a light treatment, in the past 30 years. It's just like this surface thing, like here's our values. We'll post them on our website, and it's deeper than that. It's so deep. So
it's way deeper.
I'm excited. Yeah.
I agree. It's far deeper than that. I think there's two different ways I like to explain it. Is that the individual side of things, we're all in a hamster wheel. Like we're caught in this hamster wheel of day-to-day actions. We've filled our days with busyness. We're going. We've been taught through social scripts that, success is determined in a lot of ways by how busy we are. And I like to say, not only does the hamster wheel not end, it doesn't really go anywhere, right? Until we jump out of the hamster wheel. And it's the same in the company. As a leader connects, or an individual connects into who they really are, they find these amazing places of creativity and gifts inside. And that aligns them to the creation of the values that matter. Because in the hamster wheel, we're not even aware of our values, like Jen says, because we've completely filled our day with activities and busyness. So how could we be connected to what really, truly matters to us? And our authentic values come from that connection of who we really are. That's where it starts. That's how it becomes authentic. And at the company side, a collection of these individuals, 100%, it is, identity and connecting to the identity of the organization is where I believe it all starts. Your inner brand becomes your external brand. It becomes the unification of everyone together. We're beating from the same drum, and it's not a ping pong table or a poster on a wall. It comes from really sinking into what are we trying to achieve together, and who are we? And even legally, your corporation is its own entity, right? It's our fiduciary duty to actually run it as its own entity. So it's not far off to think that if it really truly is its own entity, it should have its own authentic identity. And Gio, and I don't know if you would agree with this, Jen, but for true sustainability beyond the founder leader, it has to have its own identity, its own brand, so that no matter who's coming in, they're aligning with the actual authentic identity of the organization and not bringing their perception of what the identity should be.
Absolutely. All great brands truly understand that. And I love what you touched on, John, around even when I was in the corporate world, I had a personal brand as the who I was in the company and the way that I was able to lead teams. And I was, John, I think you'll appreciate this. I was the person people called in when there was a project that was going south. They were like, bring Jen Kem in. Like, she's going to go and I would bring it in. I was like the chiropractor. I would just like crack it all back together. And that identity that I had, which is me, my old beliefs, even in this like being a woman or being, all that type of things, I had a chip on my shoulder. I had stuff to prove, and I feel like, again, Verizon, who I have a lot of respect for, obviously they're a client of mine. And I wonder, like, if we had a values-driven model, even a way to measure success individually inside of the organization, a different way to performance manage, which is in also my book, like giving an idea of like how you could performance manage better or in a more aligned way that got people to see their part in the bigger, thing, not just from their, what's my bonus I'm going to get in March? How can I go and achieve that? And I know that if I would have stayed in corporate, this book also helps me understand that I could have been very happy there too. Actually, very happy. I could have stayed and not had this life I have now. And I think I would have been satisfied in a very deep, meaningful way, because I think the work I do now is the same work I was doing there. That's my point. But we get so on the hamster wheel, as you described, that I became resentful, that I became frustrated, right, in the system. that no longer felt like it honored my gifts and my humanity. It treated me like an asset that made more money, got teams to, and by the way, I loved all that. I loved being a part of those results. And I was like, can I get treated fairly? Can I get, we've lost that in that. And it doesn't mean you don't have to have still policies and procedures to protect the company. And otherwise it's chaos, right? You need structures, but those structures are what help the brand live past the founder's life and continues the vision forward. I mean, we look at that, like you look at Apple, you look at, Steve Jobs is no longer here, right? But when Apple produces a product that sucks, and frankly, they've moved from what I call product innovation to product management, right? Right? Like Steve Jobs was like turning over in his grave when they put that toggle on the iPhone. He was like, I know he was like haunting Tim Cook. Like, what the hell, dude? Like, what are you doing? Right? But the strength of the brand and its ability to still be seen in the eyes of their loyal following is because they've also created the who of their audience too. So I love this because the who's your who is also, it's the whole ecosystem. It's this, like, who are you serving? And then how does the company show up for that? And how do the individuals in the company see that connection point? So I don't know. I just love all this conversation because it matters. Like, this is how the world's working, and we can shift it to work better for us as individuals instead of just being part of the hamster wheel.
How can we possibly know our why or our what or our how without ever taking the time to know who we are? And including our businesses, our companies that we're a part of, that we get to help lead. That the center point for that creativity is the unification of all your brilliant minds together. I learned this a long time ago, Giovanni. I think I've told it to you before. I love this one. Every distraction is an attraction. So why am I attracted to it? And that happens in companies all the time, right? And the identity, really being in touch with the identity and who the company is, allows you to be able to manage those distractions.
So when we started today, I mentioned that the three of us are out for dinner. It's actually the four of us. The fourth person at our table is what I would call the hero of my story, which is the person who's listening to us right now. And they are interested in not only understanding what their gift is and in terms of their contribution to the world, and that's the point of the show. It's called The Gifted Show. They're also interested in understanding how does their gift relate to their identity, and how does all that relate to their values. And where I actually want to start on this journey is both of your advice on decision making. I keep over the past few weeks, I keep thinking, when we grow up in school, we're taught math and science and English, language, whatever the language is, social studies. We aren't taught how to make decisions. And I believe that's probably one of the most important skills to ever have. And I think that the two of you may have an answer. And I'm curious, when the theme, because Jen, you brought this up around making decisions, when the topic or theme of decision making comes up, what advice do you give in terms of how to make decisions? And this is a question for both of you. So whoever wants to start.
I can go.
Please, Jen, over to you, Jen. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So this values-driven model, as I mentioned, there's three components. There's vision, there's voids, and violations. And typically, your vision is your future self. It's the self that you're wanting to be true, right? The things that you dream of. The voids and the violations are typically your past and your present self, the things growing up that you wish that you had, or, a vision of your life. Or even, I love that John spoke of his mother. She was in pain, and he was like, I want to be a healer. And me too. My dad had Crohn's disease, but he was such a strong man. And I was like, how come there's no cure for that? I don't understand why he's in this type of pain. And I was like, there's got to be a solution here. And back to decisions, in my study around being what I call values driven, I realized that when you filter your decisions through your values, it's such a clean decision. I call it a clean yes or a clean no. I think our lives are revolved, unfortunately, around a dirty maybe, I call it. Like we're always maybeing ourselves, right? And it's a self-sabotage technique that allows us to not face that actually no is incredible. No is incredible and yes is incredible. And that it's okay. You're not going to die, probably. I mean, I can't guarantee that, but probably whether you go in either direction, especially if you filter it through your values. So, for example, our company values are autonomy, justice, generosity, leadership, and legacy. And they're not just words, there's actually definitions of what that means to us and the people who work with us and how we make decisions. And we say, this is our decision making framework, our values. You know, if it doesn't give us or our clients autonomy or produce that for them, if it's not a just decision making process that can be explained, so people feel like whether they like the decision or not, they can understand why it was made, right? That it's generous in terms of there's nothing that we do that can be taken from us because what we do is unique and important. Leadership is more about leadership of self over leadership of others. We believe in investing in ourselves because that's when we can lead others more effectively. And ultimately, like, we want to make an impact while we're here, not when we're not in some far off future, we like to say. We want to make it now while we're here. We want to leave every place better than how we found it. And in those, when we are asked, whether it's I'm invited to a podcast or our company is asked to work on a new project, it starts with our values. Does it pass the values muster? You know, the test. If we do this thing, can I, do that? And then I also realized, Gio, this is a perfect filter for my personal life, like whether it's with my husband or my kids and there's a communication breakdown or because that's going to happen. That's life, How can we use our values as a family and in relationship to help at least get us to a neutral point of that we can move forward with yes or no? So I think it's very powerful to have what I call a clean yes or clean no through our values. And that's how I live my life. And it's made my life feel so much freer. And I don't feel FOMO as much. I feel a little bit sometimes when I'm like, oh, I want to do that thing, right? But it really cures FOMO in a lot of ways when you do it this way. So that's my take on it.
Awesome. Gio, I go back to something I said earlier. How can we possibly expect from ourselves to understand how to lead our life if we don't know who we are? Like, how can we even feel like we understand our values and if they're really connected with it being an authentic representation of who we are, unless we take the time to dive in, like Jen said, to study herself. And really what that is taking the time to go inward. That's one of the things I say is I don't believe, just the way I look at it, I don't believe, how about this, I'll rephrase it. I believe every single person in this world, all 7.5 billion of us actually have the same purpose. I don't believe that it's 7.5 billion different purposes. I believe our purpose is to discover who we truly are, then align, release our giftings that we find deep inside ourselves. They're like little seeds. I call them seeds of potential, seeds of purpose. And you find them when you look deep inside yourself, and then you release these seeds of potential into the world. Well, and as you do, whether it's I'm connected to my grandma's recipe for baking bread, or, it doesn't matter. I want to go play tennis again because I just love playing tennis, or it's actually a company that you want to start or some sort of creation. You are so deeply connected to it because you've listened in your heart of what truly matters to you. No one can take that away from you. And when you're that connected and it's come from inside of you that deeply, you know who you are and you know why you're doing what you're doing. And so if you know why you're doing what you're doing, your values start to shape before your very eyes. The values that you really feel are connected to who you are. And so push come to shove, difficult times, you can make the decisions that count. You feel connected to knowing that this value that I'm living behind isn't a poster that I put on a wall, isn't someone else's value that I think is kind of neat and exciting. It's mine. And this is very important. And the hamster wheel takes us from this. We've been taught, again, to determine success as being very busy. What is busy? It takes us from this deep, meaningful life of what we truly desire. And when we dive in to find out what we truly desire, no matter who you are and what you want to do, it starts to shape, again, like I said, the right thinking, which becomes the right word spoken language and habits to shape your values. It's no different in a company. If we have a collection of people in a company that aren't attached to the existing value system of the company and all have different values, how can the company be unified? You are going to have collisions of values. And then how do you resolve those? And so I think we all really need to realize that the inner wisdom that lies within us, this incredible force of guidance, it's within all of us. It's there right now. Whether we've been distracted from it for 20 years, it's there. We just have to reconnect with who we are and then reconnect with what truly matters and then lead our lives from that place, including, if we're privileged enough, the companies that we're a part of.
For the past probably 2 decades, the phrase that has haunted me the most is be yourself. Because every time I hear that phrase, I would always say, what the hell does that mean? So the clue lies in everything that the two of you have been saying. And I feel like for anyone, whether you're a leader, entrepreneur, or someone supporting someone else's big dream to create change, there needs to be an inward journey to self-identity and figuring these things out. And I'm just hearing both of you speak, thinking about values. I think as we're growing up, the values we have are ingrained first, and they may not be completely aligned to our true selves, but they're the ones that we follow because that's how we survive with our parents and adults and community. So for anyone who's at this dinner table with us, what are the clues to figuring this out first in terms of who I am and what I actually value? Are there questions that we can ask ourselves? Are there clues to look for in our day-to-day lives that will help uncover who we are and what we value?
I'm fine with starting there, Jen, if you're okay.
Yeah, please.
I think, Gio, when we feel a disengagement in any of the facets of the life that we live, when there's this conflict, there's this sense of disconnection, whether it's relationship with family, relationships outside of family, our career, self-nourishment and care, growth, faith, belief. When we're feeling, I like what Jen said earlier, and it's true, like it's this natural progression through a decision because you're not fighting it. It's who you are. And when it becomes and we're coming from who you are and living from that place, it's very organic to make a decision. It's with ease. It becomes really instinctive, really. What to look for, the clues are the disengagement, the disconnection. I would say the absence of joy in your life, the absence of equanimity and peace. I have found in my own journey, Gio, that peace is something that, I'll take one step back. I used to define prosperity similar to potentially what Wall Street's definition of prosperity is, and I sure don't anymore. To live a prosperous life is to feel in peace, to have joy that kind of bubbles up from inside. You don't even know why. You're just laughing, you're smiling, to be present in the moment that matters. The clues are the disconnection, the disengagement, the conflict, but also are you finding yourself forecasting the future too much? Are you ruminating? Is your mind always in the future dates, or are you always regurgitating and bringing up the past of the life that you've lived. I mean, the only thing that is true right now and the only thing that is really real is this conversation right in this present moment that I'm blessed to be a part of. And for me to be truly present in this moment is prosperity for me. It's peace. And so the clue would be that I would love to say to the heroes is, what aspects of your life, when you look at it, are not feeling peaceful? Are what's not in harmony? That's what I believe to be the life we're to live. I mean, yes, we get life bombs and these interruptions and these things that come out of nowhere and we can't control them and they just throw us upside down sometimes. But even through the storms, we can anchor into a greater sense and knowing of peace in our lives. Jen?
I love that. I'm going to jump off of that because clues, getting back to clues. One thing that keeps me grounded from a values-driven perspective is I will ask myself a lot, am I focusing too much on the future? Because when you focus too much on the future, there's actually a medical condition called anxiety for that. The future is anxiety, right? If you focus too much on your past and what hasn't happened or what did happen or all the things in between, there's a medical condition called depression for that. But if you focus on the present, that's the gift of peace. Heroes listening in. So give yourself the gift of peace that when you find yourself too much in the future or ruminating too much in the past, society will call that those things, those medical conditions. This is not a judgment. This is what society will say. Society will say, this is what's your problem. And some people have a medical condition. I want to be clear on that. But when we get back to the present, that's where peace is, as John said. So I just want to +1 on that. And I have to remind myself, and through my own rituals that I do that work for me, it helps to ground me daily. So back to clues that you're not living your values. Number 1, that you're making decisions based on the modern day societal problems that we have. I'm calling them FOMO, imposter syndrome, comparitis, all the things that as a hero, you might be listening to us and say, oh gosh, Jen, Gio, John, you're very successful. You must not have any problems, or you never feel those things, and that is utter trash. Like, we absolutely still feel those things. Oh, I'll speak for myself. I absolutely feel those things here and there. But what tethers me back to myself is I ask myself, am I doing things out of shoulding myself? Like, should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? The word should is such a signal word for you're out of alignment with your values, because to think that you should do anything is not peaceful. It's more, what would I like to do? What do I want? What do I desire? And then how do I find the other who's and the confidence, not big boisterous confidence, more just like a peaceful confidence of saying, I'd like this. I shouldn't have it, but I would really like this. What do I want? The second thing that is a little clue for me when I'm out of alignment is I don't ask, when I'm resisting something, I don't believe that we're resisting anything. I believe that we're resenting something. So instead of resistance, and I ask, why am I resisting this? I don't ask that question. I ask, what am I resenting right now? What is something that's happened that I'm assigning value to this scenario that I'm contemplating that actually should not be in part of the formula in my decision making right now? Like, what am I actually resenting? And when I can identify what I'm resenting, something that happened, a person that frankly maybe have disappointed me, or something that I didn't feel courage to do. So I felt guilty that I didn't do something in the past that I should have done. Whatever it is, when I can just name that and write it down, automatically I feel peaceful. Like, oh gosh, I'm so glad I identified it was a scenario, not who I am. It was something that happened, but it's not who I am. So therefore now I don't have to resist this thing that I want. It's a really interesting thing when you just ask yourself, what are you resenting? A third kind of thing that I do as a tool that helps me is that, and I start to look at my voids and violations, as I mentioned, and that's kind of a resentment gap. But a void is something that's missing or you perceive as missing in your life, because in the bigger picture, nothing's missing, truly. But as an individual who's living a life where we're living in the ocean, where you're going to be hit by tsunamis some days, and some days you are going to be down the lazy river. Like, that's how life goes, right? But when you're hit with something hard, typically the reason that you react or it gets you out of your pocket is because you're letting that void or violation mean something more than it does today. But you want to honor that it happened, because if you don't, then you're bypassing the beauty of knowing yourself. Like, instead of avoiding yourself and going, you know what, that happened. Great, it happened. So now how does that help me, incentivize me to use that thing to actually self-motivate me to want more? And when I say more, not things, but whatever it is I want and how I contribute in the bigger collective, let's say as part of a company or the leader of a company. I feel like we shame our voids and violations too. And by shaming those voids and violations, we are not taking into account the rich history of our lives. And in studying myself and studying successful people, when you get in touch with those, what people also would say was like toxic or trauma, when you get in touch with that, obviously with help, not on your own, get support, the magic that can create for you to just know that that is actually part of the ingredients of you, but you get to shift it if it doesn't serve you anymore, because you know what it is. But until you know what it is, how can you shift anything? And that's the deep, deep work that I think we're talking about today. Like, getting to know yourself in a way that all scares and delights you, like scares the hell out of you and delights you too. Like, how can you be that person and be brave enough to be that person?
I
Love that. Gio, sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, Jen makes me think of many different things as she's speaking. One visualization that I think is very powerful is, if you think of a mountain range, it's filled with valleys, it's filled with, the cliffs, it's, paths that you can walk up pretty much just by, some hiking. But then there's other parts that are, it's like, how am I going to get over that ridge? Difficulties. Something that is, so much of life can be compared to that mountain. We've heard those analogies before, but Jen makes me think of one that I use as a tool that I think is really important, is you're not in the same place when you were in the valley. So whatever that valley was that happened in your life, we bring forward, I should say, the same kind of constructed thought pattern and feelings associated with those thoughts to the present moment. But you're not in the valley anymore. You kept going on life. You're somewhere else on the mountain. And if you simply look back towards the valley and say, do I see what happened to me the same way, like from the same lenses in my eye? Am I seeing it differently now? What have I learned? Can I see compassion for the situation, anyone that was involved, including ourselves? As I like to say, where we find compassion, forgiveness holds our hand. And when we can look back at those moments, we can realize that we were never going through them, we were growing through them. We just don't want to get stuck and let those older experiences shape our present moment. We should be learning from them in terms of shaping our present moment, but not bringing back the past to be relived into the present moment.
So could we sometimes
the same way?
Could we misinterpret identity based on wounds, trauma, past experiences? Because I feel like the lessons I've learned over, especially the past 5 years, is that sometimes we make decisions not based on our true self or our highest self, but based on protecting the identity of the wounded child and staying safe in that place and making decisions that ultimately don't serve us. And then we get really confused. Like, why am I doing that? Some people would label this self-sabotage or something along those lines. But I feel like we need clarity first on how these decisions are being guided. And this is why I'm saying by clues. Like, I think I like the phrase Easter eggs because it's a comic book superhero phrase. And I think our life leaves us these clues, these Easter eggs of reverse engineering all of this. And I love what you've both been saying around clarity on our story so far. And then using that to write the story moving forward. And in terms of moving forward, I want to ask both of you one of my favorite questions. We'll start with Jen. What has to happen on your path, Jen, over the next, let's say, 5 years for you to consider that time a dream come true in terms of the change that's being made?
What has to be true? So in the next 5 years, you know, even in my own personal journey and my professional journey, I'm making a big shift. And it's pretty scary for me because I'm selling a part of my company off. I'm really interested in and geeking out on this values-driven model and philosophy and how I've seen how it's shifted my life so much to understand myself, you know, to really understand myself and get to that place of neutral that makes me understand that there's actually, we don't have just top values. You have a series of values. And the question is, are you making your decisions from your top values or your lower values? Because lower values typically are the ones that cover the wound that you mentioned, Gio. They're the ones that make us feel safer if we keep covering the wound, if we keep band-aiding it, if we keep avoiding it, even though it's going gangrene on us, you know, from the inside out. And so my next 5 years, I want to get as many people to understand that they are already values driven. Here's the thing. This is what I want people to get. It's not like you are learning this and you have to become it. My thing is you already are driven by your values. The question is, are those the values that bring you peace, joy, purpose? And if not, then you're probably in a values deficit. You are actually still living your values, or maybe you're following people that you thought were in alignment with your values, but you're starting to realize, wait, are they? Well, the answer is absolutely yes, they are, because you're still choosing to be in their sphere. So if I can help people get honest about that alignment in themselves so that they pick the people, the places, and the situations that bring them joy while we're still on this planet, because even though I personally believe like there's many lives we live, for this life, for this particular meat sack that my soul is holding right now, to be present today with you two humans that I really love. And by the way, also the fourth human who's here, or humans, the heroes. I want to shift. I want people to understand that that's what's happening. This is why you're moving through life, is because of your values. And if they're not serving you, you can shift them, but you just have to discover what they really are. So I hope that answered your question, but that's what I'm on a mission to do.
John?
Amazing. Need more people like Jen in the world, right? So I hope that...
that's what I'm trying to do. Let's clone ourselves. Let's go, you know?
People living from values.
That's the new AI, you know? Human intelligence. Back. Let's get it back.
You know, Gio, I just really believe in in my heart that we're here, and this thing called time is not as long as we think it is. And I really think that all of us are truly gifted. I believe that there is a much greater force that is inside all of us that is the opposite of us feeling like we're alone. I feel there's a great oneness that can be experienced when we connect with who we really are. When we get past the fear of blind spots that keep us in the dark, and we can actually turn it around and realize that we should be blind spot detectives in our lives because it frees us. What I truly hope for is people to just start to realize that we get on the hamster wheel of busyness, of pleasing others, of not listening to that inner intuition, the little voice that's still inside us that says, there's more, connect. Why are you doing this? And we ignore those things. For more people to break away from the thought of having to live a life that they know is not the life that they're to be living, or it's not connected to who they are. No matter what it is. No matter what it is. When we connect with even the smallest of moments, when we really know that we're going to make this phone call, we're going to call someone that matters to us, and we're just following that because we know it's so important. We have no idea how it's going to be received on the other side. We have no idea how important it is for that person to hear those words that we've been holding back to speak. We find these moments in our heart. And when we align our heart with our minds and we create this alignment, our lives change. And the lives of others that are around us change. And it's in all of us. We all have this amazing potential, but we're so distracted. So what do I want to see? What do I hope to see? How about that? What do I have faith to see? I have faith to see that people start to awaken to the possibility of that all the answers that they truly seek are already inside of them. And when they take the time to connect with that and commit, even just be a little willing to live from that place, everything starts to come alive. There's a virus that all of us have been having to deal with. Some would say there's another virus called fear. Some would say, I've heard it many times. I think there's another one. It's called judgment. Judgment of self. Judgment of others. And I feel like that leads to feeling offended. And we can let much of this go when we realize that we're all much more connected than we really think we are. And when we can let some of the anchors go and connect with that connection, connect with that belief, whether it be in our companies or in our personal relationships, we just naturally and organically become more of who we really are. That's my hope, Gio.
Profound and beautiful. I feel complete. So I would like to thank the both of you for today and for everything you've shared. And one of the cool things about this show is that because we have multiple guests, we're going to ask everyone to keep coming back. So thank you for this first session. And every time you come back, you'll be with different people, which is even more fun. So I get to keep connecting you to awesome humans. And now that we are done for today, now do you get what I mean by the two of you need to know each other?
Yeah, for sure.
It's like you're literally on. It's so cool when I see this. It's like you guys are on the same freaking path. It's so fun, and so many serendipitous moments of your past that I didn't even know. So I love both of you, and I appreciate both of you, and thank you so much for today. This has been so much fun.
Thank you, Gio.
Thank you so much,
So
Gio.
good to get to know you even more, John.
Thank you, Jen. I really loved hearing your wisdom and from your heart. And Gio, thank you for bringing us together as usual.
You're welcome.
Now you've been shown the importance of your values, it's time to widen your gaze. The greatest heroes have multiple senses to detect danger, to sense suffering and anguish. These subconscious powers can allow you to overcome any obstacle or accelerate your progress at an exponential rate. I'm here to tell you that you, my hero friend, need to open your mind. See you next time as our next set of guides will show you how to pierce time and expand your consciousness.